Hello, welcome back. This is Dawn with Red Barn. If you've been seeing any of my videos previously, you know that I've been doing these beautiful color studies. And I've done, I think, 12 of them now. And in the process, I have accumulated, thanks to the dollar store, a number of palettes. So I have been swatching or squeezing out my paint onto these palettes and swatching them out and been having a blast doing it. But I've reached a problem. I've run out of ceramic plates. Now, could I jump on Amazon, go back to the dollar store, pick up some more? Sure. But this, I'm really trying to spend this year being a conscious consumer and how I spend my dollars. So I am trying not to do that. And instead of getting more plates, even though they're just $1.25, said $1.25. And it can hold a lot of pigments, but instead of going and buying more, I have 3 of those, plus the other ones you saw. I also have this plastic one, and I have this little flower one that's ceramic. And I do prefer the ceramic over the plastic. Just, you start off with these in the beginning, at least I did, and graduated to the ceramic ones, and I really do like the ceramic ones. But this isn't all I have. I mean, I have other ones too that I didn't even show you on camera. I've got this ceramic one. This one's plastic. I have a metal enamel pen and a pan, another ceramic one, and then there's more off camera you can't even see. The point is, I've decided no more palettes. So I wanted another ceramic palette to do another watercolor study. And this one was full of paint, much like this one is. And I decided that instead I was going to start doing some just painting. So I got this. This is a $5 and below watercolor book. It's 5.5 by 8.5. It's 300 GSM. I know this is not cotton. I know this is not good paper. I mean, you're getting 48 sheets of paper. It can't be that good for $5, but I thought, well, this could be fun to cut things up and to make fodder with. So I started cleaning out palettes by making just shapes. I started off with circles, obviously, and then I did circles again, and I think I did circles, a number of times. And I was playing with various techniques, and then this is where I started cleaning out this flower palette. And I just was grabbing pigments and getting them wet and putting it on paper. And I did that a number of times. And I started running out of yellow, as you can see, because this one has 0 yellow on it. But again, I'm doing this to preserve the pigment. I hate throwing pigment away. And I could go wash it out in the sink, sure, but I didn't want to do that. So I continued to swatch. And then I found this plastic one. And because I was getting a little sick of these colors, and I thought, well, let's dig in my stash of palettes, and I found this plastic one and another one over here. And I'm determined to use this pigment up and do it for good, and I got sick of circles. I just got sick of circles. So then I pulled out some stencils, and I really went, okay, because I thought, well, it's the colors. No, it was the circles. It was the pattern I was getting sick of. Because I absolutely love this. Absolutely love this. And this is using the exact same pigments as this. Came off these 2 palettes. But how much more fun is that? So then my brain went, well, okay. Because that stencil was just like lying around, and I picked it up. So then I went and grabbed another one. And I made this the other night. And I thought, okay, next I'll swatch out a couple more patterns. And because everybody's got stencils sitting around. So I did, this is going to be really hard to see, the white is going to, I did some diamonds there, and then I did some chevrons here. And I do not erase these pencil lines, I just, And the circle's the same thing. That was a stencil. I just put the stencil on the paper and circled it and went to town. So we're going to just do a little stenciling magic today, or making a stencil come to life. I did have to get a little dark here, which I do want to knock that back just a skosh with this silly white eraser that's going to leave schmutz all over my paper, but I'm just going to have to live with it. Meaning like little eraser boogies. But I'm just going to dot that off real quick, or just to knock it back a little bit. I don't normally, when I'm doing this kind of things. Now, if I'm doing watercolor, if I'm doing a, quirky house or something, yeah, I do knock it back a little because I can get heavy-handed. And this is just a water brush. I think this is Pentel. Yep, this is a Pentel water brush. I have a couple of these guys, and I like the Pentels the best. I like the point that it gets down to, and all I'm doing, like I said, is just trying to clean this palette up. And this ink, or this pigment, well, just doesn't want to go away. I mean, it's great, but, and this, you can tell, this seems like it's Prussian blue. I cannot tell what that is. This was a yellow, but I've muddied it up in my attempt to try to use it up. No clue, and no clue. So, and also no clue. So, I'm using up what's in the wells first. And then you could tell I can barely made a dent in the Prussian blue, but that's because I have so much Prussian blue left over here, plus whatever these two blues are, and plus whatever that green is, which is probably a duplicate of what's on here, knowing me. I tend to get in ruts with that. And then this morning, I just discovered, and it's probably just off camera, a big smudge of Prussian blue over here on my workspace, and I'm going to try to move it up ever so slightly. I don't think you can see it. It's right here. Yep, right there's a big old smudge of Prussian blue. So I may try to clean that up today in the process. So if you see me reaching down there, you'll know what that is about, and try not to get it on myself in the process. Good luck. And this may get tedious, or it may just be absolutely fun as heck. I usually do these at night when I'm watching TV, sitting on the couch. I'll trace out a pattern, and then I'll have the water brush sitting there, which means I don't have to get up and go get water or anything else to go with it. I can just work from this, and I might have a little thing here to brush it off, but I try not to. I try to just pigment on, So I am, and I think of it like this, that I think of it less about the colors and more about, I don't know, housekeeping, cleaning up this bowl. And so I'm like scraping the sides to get any pigment that's stuck on the side to go down. And of course, the water naturally runs down as a process of that, side scraping, if you will, to clean off the pigment. And then, all right, I better go get rid of some of this. Oh, maybe not. Okay, so then maybe I'll go over here and grab some pigment, maybe. And I rarely squeeze this little guy. Usually the act of just doing what I'm doing, which is trying to pick up pigment and pressing it to the paper, is usually enough to activate the water to the degree that I need it, because I do not need a big puddle on my page, because then you have water control issues when you do that. And the only other thought that I have is if I just did a green like that, which came out of a blue well, but whatever, I'll go pick up another color. I don't wipe my brush. I don't dip it in water. I just go grab another color and just keep going. And that creates harmony in your piece, because it, even if it's just a practice piece like this, because then all of the colors relate to each other. They're having a conversation, if you will. And that's why I was trying to get a little yellow here and there so that it wouldn't all be green and blue, but whatever. Yellow and blue does make green, so there you are. This is going to have less scratchy noises with this brush, because this brush is not, it just doesn't have a lot of noise to it. But that's all this is. This is just playing around, and it gives me muscle memory practice. I try to do this every day. My practice usually is first thing of a morning to start my day. I find that to be very, I don't know, what's the word? I find it to be very calming, I guess, centering, focusing, and yet unfocusing at the same time, if that makes any sense at all. Because I have a brain that wants to go 1,000,000 miles an hour. And when I stop and paint, it's one of the few activities that I can do where I'm not making lists in my head or thinking about things I need to do later. I am just in this moment. And I need more of that in my life, frankly. Being in the moment instead of thinking ahead or thinking back or wherever else I tend to go when I'm doing other things. Okay, I'm really liking how that's looking, so I just keep going. And because I'm using so little pigment, that's why it's taking me forever to use up these palettes. My goal is to get this palette cleaned. Whether I get this big plastic bad boy cleaned off or not is not important to me. My goal is, but because I ran out of everything except Prussian blue, just about, I went to this palette to try to supplement to help make these exercises a little less about the Prussian blue. But I might come down to that. On my next one, those chevrons, I might just go all Prussian blue on that, or just all what's on this ceramic palette. And I got a fuzzy on the end of this guy that's driving me a little crazy, so I'm going to see if I can get that off. Just because I'm working so small, I'm afraid it's going to be a spoiler at some point. But this is it. Me doing my thing. This is better than any, I don't know, chemical substance they can give you to slow down the popcorn brain, or better than, I mean, it's right up there with meditation, I suspect. I used to do yoga years ago and I loved it because, again, that's another one of those activities where it forces you to focus on your breath and your balance, and you can't be making lists. Am I the only one that makes lists in their head all the time? Probably not. Okay, let's move on to the big bad boy diamonds. I really am loving that Prussian though. Prussian with the green makes it really pretty, like sea green or something. And I really don't care if the pencil lines show through ultimately. It's not about that. But I don't want that to be the first thing you see when you first look at a piece, you know. Like I said, I'm just doing housekeeping on the palette and putting the pigment I pick up on the paper. And you can freehand these patterns. You can just draw wavy lines. I've done that. I love drawing. That might be what I do after I finish these next two. Is I might just do a freeform rather, wavy line exercise, like a ocean wave. And I go from top to bottom. And in process of doing that, use up a bunch of pigment. And then what I'm probably going to ultimately do with many of these pages is I'm probably going to end up scanning them. And then I can print them out for use in my collage work. So they'll turn into fodder of sorts. And I can, you know, once scanned, I can then print them on, you know, copy paper for the really thin stuff, or even acetate transparencies, or cardstock. You know, then you get to pick, you know, how thick the medium is or how thick the vehicle is for that particular project you're working on, because there's times I want super heavyweight cardstock, and there's times I want, you know, rice paper, and my printer will print just whatever I want. So then I have an endless supply of turquoise diamonds. I still have that hair. I'm gonna see if I can get it. If not, I'll just deal with it. I might take some scissors to the brush. Has anybody ever done that? I have. Or you get some of your bristles going sideways and whatever. I love that blue. I'm not sure what that blue is exactly. It might be a phthalo something or other, but man, that is pretty. It's right there on the edge of that rim right there, but that's probably a 5-year-old glob of paint. And maybe 4. Sometime during the pandemic, I know that. But it might have been a year into the pandemic. Love that. Love, love, love. So as I've talked about in another one of my videos, it has everything. Watercolor behaves differently based on the paper. If you can spend money on one thing and not another, spend it on paper. Spend it on pigment last. I think paper, then brush, then pigment. If you were to ask professional artists, you know, what their priority would be. Of course, I did that backwards. I went with pigment first, then brush, then paper, and I'm going to tell you, I am new. I've been watercoloring, self-taught, for probably 15, 20 years now, on and off, because, you know, I can't focus on one. I do watercolor for a while. I'll do it for 6 months, 8 months, a year, and then it's like I'm ready to play with paper again, or whatever it is. You know, I bounce back and forth between several mediums, and watercolor is one of those things where I'm not doing it. I don't miss it, but then when I pick it back up again, I think, oh, I love this so much. Anyway, I play with fabric, I play with paper, I play with encaustic, which is wax and resin. I'm a mixed media artist, so I bounce around between the various disciplines. I make journals, I make collages. Anyway, what was I saying? Oh, I bought the really nice pigments first, and only recently did I actually invest in some really nice paper. 100% cotton, and some of it's, you know, brands, you know, like Fabriano and Arches and others. And I really, you know, I experimented with some of those papers in the early days. And because I was so new at it, I just didn't see a big difference in the outcome of what I was doing. And it could have been the projects I was working on, but the point is I just didn't put a lot of stock in buying really superior paper. And because some of my work is covered in wax or covered in matte medium and glued down to other things, again, I just didn't spend the time or the energy to experiment with the nicer papers. And I would buy them when they were on sale or they were a good deal or whatever and have them, but I am getting to a point, I promise. But recently I bought some really nice paper. This is not it. Although this paper isn't bad. I mean, for $5 paper from 5 and below for somebody getting started, you know, and I've had this paper for probably a year or more, so I don't even know if they still carry it, to be fair. But anyway, my point is, I bought the cheap, inferior paper because I just didn't think my experience would vary that much, and my end result, my end product, would differ that much from the cheap paper if it was going to be, you know, covered up with mediums or wax or what have you. And I'm here to tell you, I've been enjoying the nice paper, the 100% cotton paper, even the 25% cotton paper. I've really been enjoying it, and I'm starting to notice a difference when I go to use stuff, and I starting to now go, and instead of just grabbing anything, now I'm thinking about it twice before I'm considering what my end result's going to be, and you know, what application is going to be used in to decide which paper to use. Because I still say there's a place for the inexpensive paper like this. Practice. Paper is always a good thing to have. If you're going to do a study before you embark on a big piece, nobody wants to spend a lot of money on paper that they just use as a trial and error. Nobody. So, if you're just getting started, pick up some Pentel water brushes. I don't think you'll be mad about it. Pick up some inexpensive paper. And start playing around with whatever pigments you've got. Because I know as a beginning crafter, I wanted all the things, and my budget went, no, you can't. You just absolutely cannot have all the things. Because the, in and of themselves, they're not inexpensive. Or they're not expensive, but you start getting 5 or 6 in your shopping cart, and you just go, wow. Oh, I like it when it does that. I like it when you start off with one color, and then your brush gets dry, and you pick up another color, and then it bleeds back in. I'm going to get it a little closer to see if you can see it. Right there, I started off with like kind of a greener color, and then I added some blue at the bottom, and then it's kind of wicking its way back up into the top part, which is still damp. And that's where the better paper comes into play. To be perfectly fair, the paper holds moisture different. It lets you layer and glaze different. It stays wet longer. It lets your paints play with each other rather than just go and get soaked up and then it's like, now what? And your pigment stuck and you can't move it around. It doesn't pill. There's a whole lot of things to be said about really good quality paper. And definitely get some to have for when you're ready. But in the meantime, play with whatever you can find. But if your product or if your end result or if your blending like that guy doesn't work like you want it to, that was luck. I couldn't make it do that again if I wanted to because the paper's not great. And I happened to hit the circumstances and the conditions perfectly for that to work. That's where quality paper, it provides a consistent experience for you where this doesn't. But anyway, if you're struggling with something that you're trying to in your head get on paper, something other than just practicing, and you're not getting the experience you want, try changing your paper. That's the best tip I can give anybody. Don't change your pigment. Maybe don't even change your brush. Just change your paper. Work on the variables one at a time, right? Then if that doesn't work, try a better brush. One that holds more water, more pigment. It lets you do what you want to do. But in the meantime, if you're just practicing, playing around with new pigments, I am loving that little square, that little that little diamond, that little accidental segue of color. When I scan that in, I may blow that up and make that just like a big old thing. Okay, I want more blue. I'm enjoying more blue than green right now. And that is the beautiful thing here. I think I said before, I sometimes go about things in my art room in a Montessori way, which is, what do I feel like doing today? What appeals to me today? What is grabbing my attention? Excuse me. And I think that's the best way for me to approach my art, is to do, what do I feel today? Both of my kids went to Montessori preschool and kindergarten, and I didn't know anything about Montessori till my babies came along, and I knew there was an option for that. My mom told me about it, and I was like, that's really neat. And they compartmentalize everything, which that's very helpful for me too. And so when we went to see the school as 4-year-olds, They were showing the rooms with the baskets of all the different activities, the sorting and the color matching and the numbers and, you know, whatever the activities were. And you watch the kids pull a basket down and go sit on their mat and do that activity until they were done with it. And then they would get up and return it to its location and clean up their space and then start again. And I try to do that in my art as well. When I'm done with the project or done with that activity, whether the project is done or not, sometimes I reach an impasse, you know. I'm stuck. I don't know what's next. It gets its own bin, it gets its own bucket, and it gets cleaned up till I'm ready to pick it up again. Don't ask me how many buckets I have. It's not a good number. It's too many. Okay. That's a turquoise. That is a lot of blue and a lot of green coming together. My apologies. I've got a frog today. I keep trying to deal with it, but it doesn't want to go away. I had a hot tea earlier. Now I'm trying tea with lemon in it to strip the throat a little bit. Nothing seems to be working. This is quite fun for me. This might be quite tedious for somebody else to watch, though. I don't know. When I'm color swatching, it's like, ooh, what color's next? But this, I don't know if this is tedious or not. We're about to find out. Y'all will tell me. So many kind comments on my other videos. I do appreciate the feedback. I'll tell you a brief story here while I'm swatching these colors. Is I was doing my last color study. I thought I was using Rose of Ultramarine. Okay, show and tell. I thought I was using Rose of Ultramarine. And when I did a new purple palette, I put what I thought was Rose of Ultramarine, but one of my kind viewers says, I don't think that's Rose of Ultramarine. And sure enough, I went and pulled, and I put where I thought Rose of Ultramarine was on my palette was actually Quin Violet. And that's what I ended up with, where I have Rose of Ultramarine. So I got to fix that. But it was a viewer who told me, and I was so disappointed because I was like, what happened to my Rose of Ultramarine? I love that color in the first swatch. Why did it come out so badly when I did it the second time? Well, because you didn't use the right pigment pool on your plate. So you know what I did? I went and took a Sharpie and I put ROU, Rose of Ultramarine. So I will not make that mistake again while these colors are on this palette. Silly, silly me. So my next thing I'm going to do after this guy is I am going to go do a negative space painting. I love doing negative space. It's one of my favorite things to do with watercolor. And I was trying to decide which color I was going to use, and I decided I was going to use Rose of Ultramarine. And then when I swatched out that latest violet palette, I was going, well, I'm not going to use it now if I can't count on that pigment to be consistent. And, because ultramarine's a granulating pigment, and I kept thinking, man, why isn't that working the way I expected it to? Where's the ultramarine? Anyway, thank you for your comment. And thank you for alerting me to the obvious. I don't know why it didn't occur to me, but there we go. Sometimes we need others to help us see what was right in front of us. But I do appreciate your comments. I do read them all. So I don't know how many of you are also Tim Holtz fans. I'm a huge Tim Holtz person. It will become evident through my videos over the course of time that I just think he's amazing. I met him in person once, about 12 years ago at a stamp show. I have a signed stamp by him, and I am not a fangirl of any kind, in any way or any shape. I am not a fangirl. Except for that day. I totally fangirled over him. and I stood there just giddy as I could be about getting. I bought a wooden stamp from him. He was demoing that day at the convention center in Orlando, and I bought a wooden stamp, and his partner Mario was there, along with Ted Cutts from Stampers Anonymous. And I bought the stamp and I asked for Tim to autograph it. And I have a photo of me standing there while he autographs my stamp, which I have behind me on my wall. And no, I haven't used it. That was in 2012. Nope, haven't used it. I will. I just haven't. All right, well, we're about 3 rows in, and it's been about 15 minutes. I don't know how much people want to hang out and watch this very similar color situation continue on. I'll do a bit more, and then I may pause it and come back at the end so you can see, or I might time-lapse it. I haven't decided. So you can see the end result. As you can see, I'm not being super careful, and that's okay to me, because I'm really happy with, I embrace imperfection, perfectly imperfect, or whatever it is. I'm okay with that. Really, this is just an exercise for me to practice, with muscle memory and mindfulness. Imagine if I stopped talking a bit, I would do a little bit better on keeping it in between the lines. But let's be honest, I'm in my late 50s and I'm wearing glasses with 3 focal lengths in them. And let's not forget that the eyes are not as good as they used to be. They just aren't. But this I can see great because I've got some new lights, and this paper is super bright white, and the color and the pigment is strong enough of a contrast that I can see the pencil line and see where the pigment goes. This brush is super quiet. I noticed in one of my previous videos, the brush made a lot of, not scratching, but you could hear the brush against the paper, right? This one, I'm not hearing anything, and I'm right on it. You'll notice I have not squeezed this brush once, or this pen once. Whenever I go into the well to dip to get some pigment, there's already some water there, but it just kind of flows down naturally. And that's one of the things I like about the Pentel water brushes. And I've tried 5 or 6 different kinds. Sorry, I'm back in camera. I have a whole plethora of water brushes here. This one is, I don't know, but you got to push on it here. I don't like that. This one is a cheapy brand from, it's about water control. And to me, well, that lid doesn't want to stay on. That's not great. For me, it's about, I think this is another Pentel. It is. Okay, so Pentel makes several. I think you can buy a pack, a multi-pack, and you'll see the different nib sizes here. And I might, to be fair, should be, for this small of a project, be using the smaller one. But you'll see how, if I'm just touching it, see how, I don't know if that's showing up, but it's just, it's automatically giving you a little bit of water. I love that. And I'm not sponsored. These, I bought these with my own money, and I bought all these with my own money. But some of these, you know, and if you're playing around with, you know, some kids, your nieces and nephews, and your own children or whatever, you know, buy the cheapy ones and get the Crayola paints. Absolutely. But, just trying to see. And Tim, I love Tim. He's made several, or he made 2, I think. And this is one of them. It's a flat brush. It's okay. It's not bad. I just don't... It has water in it, and you'll see it is not wicking water or not letting water come down the way the Pentels are. Here's a no hate. Here's a Jane Davenport one, and it's all right. Oh, I don't think this has any water. Not fair. Not a fair comparison. What else do I have in here? Oh, this is another Tim. I like this one. This is one of Tim's. If I recall correctly, I like this one. Nope. It's not giving me any water. My hands are so dry, but I can't put lotion on when I'm doing watercolor. No, see, I'm not getting any water coming down on this. You have to squeeze, and I don't like doing that. I prefer when it touches, as you can see, pigment. Hello. The Pentels for that reason. Do I have any others? Yeah, I've got some that I've filled with ink. Those are scary. Who's this one? Oh, that's Jane. Jane made several. Everybody's got their own preference, but see how that water comes out like that? Let's do it on this one. And I'm not squeezing. Here, I'll hold it at the tip. I am not squeezing. And that water comes down, and that is exactly why I love these Pentels. And I don't know if they have more than these two sizes. I don't care, because these two sizes are all I need. Okay, water pen done. Back to painting. I think, if I remember, Michaels has this 2-pack of these 2 pen sizes. 2 water pens. They're not pens. Why am I saying that? These 2 water brushes, I think, are like $6, $7. Even if they're $10, you know, Michaels always has a coupon. You can get it 40% off and $3 a brush. Yep. And they travel really well, too. And the other thing I like about them is how they fill. They're super simple to fill. You open this, you run it underwater, you close it. Could not be easier. Okay, there endeth my promotion for Pentel. You're welcome, Pentel. Not that 3 million people will see this, but you know. I'm loving that color. There's something about blue-green that just makes me think of the Bahamas, the Caribbean. That color is so rich and so lush and so bright next to these other diamonds, but I don't care. Gotta have one black sheep, right? Oh yeah, that's pretty. I like that better, but that's just a watered down version. And I guess the water coming out on its own, slowly, controlled, makes this a great travel-friendly brush. I have travel brushes. I take the Pentels with me. I have really nice Escoda, if you know, you know, travel brushes. I take my Pentels with me. Because I don't have to take water. I don't have to find water. And all I need is a little piece of paper towel or napkin. And if I need that. And I love my Escoda brushes. But man, for on the go, or sitting on your couch, who needs to be on the go? Just be somewhere where you're not in your studio. Sitting at your in-laws' house on Christmas Eve, and you know, you want to sit and paint a little bit while you're playing games or sitting around chewing the fat, because you can still talk and do this, as evidenced by this little video. Yes, my plan is to fill this book with just all kinds of doodles, patterns, stencils, whatever, with pigments, and get down to what I'm calling my my permanent palette. I have so many palettes that I've started over the years. I have a portrait palette. I have 2 portrait palettes when I thought maybe I was going to enjoy doing portrait work, and I don't. I mean, I do, but not enough. And then I have a bright palette, that's what I call it, on the outside, and then I have a blue palette, and I have a green palette. And I'm talking about the ones that seal and have the 82 wells inside. And then I have this amazing Lazy Susan palette that's over to the right. One day I will show y'all that one. That has, I think, 100 wells in it, and it's round, and it has a Lazy Susan, and it has so many pigments in it, and it is a beautiful, beautiful palette. But I find myself needing to clear a whole lot of real estate to be able to use it, and it ends up holding things instead because it's so big. Yeah, so I'm trying to get down to an essential palette, and so I'm kind of in the process of auditioning the colors that I want in an essential palette. And I know I want some things like, Payne's Gray and Burnt Sienna and Cad Yellow and Cad Green, Cad Red and Cad Orange, some of those basic colors. But I'm thinking I'm going to get down to like 10 colors and or 12 colors, and keep my palette limited. I think if I have too many crayons in the toy box on the regular. So I'm in the process of cleaning out some palettes. Slowly. Because what you see here has probably taken me a week to clean that palette. If you call that clean. It's not. But it was really thick and goopy like this before. So you can appreciate how long it's taken. Well, you saw all those previous pages. And I do one of those a day. I have another book too. It's not just this book, but because what artist works from one sketchbook? I want to know. I've not met one yet who has just one sketchbook. They probably have 20. I do. Okay. But with the amount of pigment I'm using, you can see why it's taken me so long to use this palette up. If I was doing a big old something, it would use it up faster, right? Yeah, for sure. I'm going to pick up that smaller Pentel brush and try that and see how I feel about it with and that's the other thing I like. Oh, I knocked the camera. I'm so sorry. Oh, put you back. That's the other thing is I like that the cap snaps onto the back. Some of those caps are worthless in that regard. All right, let's see if we like the precision of this guy a little better in these little tiny spaces. I might like this better for the chevron too. Oh, no control there. Let's try to control our brush. What I'm doing here is just cleaning up the little bits of pigment that are still in this well. Probably can't even see them on the camera, but I can. There was yellow in that one, can you tell? See that color, how pale it is, pale green? To scrub that little bit of pigment off the edge, off the rim. The thing I hope that's coming through here, may not be, is that no matter how many times I go back into the same well of pigment, paint, because of the water distribution that's different, or the amount of pigment that's left on my brush from my previous diamond, or other pigments that are, you just don't, you're not getting the same color twice. Well, at least it doesn't feel that way to me. Maybe there's very subtle variations, but they feel all very unidentical, and I like that. Sorry, it's rearranging. Now that one was on purpose, meaning I went and picked up a different pigment, but that might have that extra special benefit of the, oh yeah, look, it's doing it. It's doing it. Can you see it? It's doing it. Wow. If I tilt the paper this way, I wonder if it'll do it more. I love that. Love that. Okay, pipettes, get out of the way. Okay, let's pick up, let's try to duplicate that. Not here. This little half diamond is not a good area to do that. See if we can do it here. We're going to pick up a really dark pig. We're going to go really pigmented here. Super pigmented. And of course, no, it doesn't want to wake at all. And that's just how that works. Or in this case, it doesn't work. And that's okay. And that's okay. Because there's no expectation of how this turns out. Just for fun. Too green. I've got some more blue. It's not in a green mood today. My watch is telling me I have to stand. Well, not have to stand. It's suggesting strongly. There's that blue again. Okay, that one did a neat granulation there, or blend, or whatever you want to call it. I'd love to know which color green this is. That's the other thing. By cleaning up my palettes and getting down to my big palette, my Roblox palette. Roblox? No. No, Roblox is a video game my nephew plays. It starts with an R and ends with an X, but I can't think of it right now. But anyway, I have those colors labeled, those pans labeled. And even in my little, smaller, sealable palettes, I have them labeled. But on these guys, the plates and these random, I have nothing labeled. And then if you want to, yeah, you understand the frustration. If you find some color, you're like, oh, I love that. What was it? No idea. Not good. So if you get yourself down to a palette you use all the time, you'll know what colors are in them, and not have 82 palettes in process at the same time. Another day I'll show you all my palettes. I'll give you a palette tour, and you'll be shocked, and you will call the hoarders people, and I will accept this without judgment. And then you'll understand why my mantra for 25 is use what you have. Okay, that was self-recrimination. I get it. Ease up. All right. I love that one. See that one right there? I don't know if the camera's going to pick that up very well or not. You know, that one is very, very harsh, very stark, very obvious. Where was that one that did appear? Oh, that one, very subtle. Probably not good enough for the camera to pick up. Maybe I can get some pictures after the fact, close-ups of some of those that I really like. Put in a thumbnail or something, but they're accidental. But maybe with practice, I can learn how those things happen so that I can make them happen intentionally when I'm ready, right? Right. Meanwhile, relaxation. Being in the moment. Remember the now. And Kelly green is not my favorite. All right, I'm going to do just that green here in a second. Just want to see what that green is supposed to be. I'm going to try to just grab that pigment. I know it's hard to do that when you've got other pigments going on simultaneously, but let's see what we can do. All right, Mr. Green Jeans. Let's see what you got to show me today. I want to say that's, you know, part of me wants to think that's sap green. And I like sap green in its pure form. I don't dislike that green. Okay, but I got to add some blue to it. We just can't keep going this way, not in this particular exercise. But I think that might be sap green. And that would make sense, because if I was to buy a convenience green back in the early days, it would have been sap. Because I'm not a fan of Hooker's green, or what was that other green people like? Oh, let's tone this bad boy down. Let's just kind of pick up some other blues, see what we can do. Still very green. Oh no, we can't do that much blue. Oh, mercy sakes, what did we get ourselves into there? I was going to get this blue off my table too. I'll work on that next, actually. Because that's perfectly good pigment. I came from where I had it stacked. 2 palettes stacked on top of each other. Okay, now I'm making a puddle on my table. Ooh, that is really blue. Oh my goodness. And some pigment stuck to the bottom of one of the other plates. And then when I went to use it, it just transferred. Wow, how turquoise is that? Fairly sure that's Prussian blue. But I had so much green in my brush from over here. That turned it super aqua. Super aqua. Sounds like a superhero. Oh man, this stuff is strong. It's like garlic, man. It lets you know it's here. But I love garlic, so that's not a bad thing. Oh yeah, I'm enjoying that. Alright, let's do a watered down version of that. What we did was just swish it around in a little bit of other pigments, but it's basically going to be that pigment watered down with a little bit of green. Let's let them all have a conversation. What are they saying? No idea. Oh, we're having fun with pigment today. We're about, what, halfway through and about 45 minutes in. This is going to be my longest video yet, but I don't think these videos are enjoyable on time-lapse. I was thinking about it as I said that earlier, and I'm like, no, that's green. I'm not in green mode today. Nope, I'm not. I'm in blue. I did a video earlier with blue paper. I wonder if that's why I'm in a blue mode. I think I do like this smaller brush though for this smaller size of stencil. I used a smaller pattern. That stencil, by the way, was the paper stencil. I want to say it's Faber-Castell, but I don't remember. It's one of those, I'm pretty sure it's Faber-Castell, but it's a paper, it's like brown, like a brown cardstock. And they've got the, like the Persian pattern, which is the one I did before this one. It's a 3-pack, this diamond, and then the next one, which is the chevron, in that pack. And I've always, been afraid to use it because I thought, well, because most of what I do is wet media that would be a stencil applicable. And I thought, well, as soon as I get my gesso out or my acrylics out, it's just going to gunk it up, and then you can't, I bought them loving them in the package, but then when I got them out, I'm like, yeah, how am I going to use these? So I've had these things for years and not used them, not opened them up. One of the things I did in the last year or two was I made myself, like 2025 is my mantra of use what you've got. I've been kind of leading up to that because like last year and the year before, the mantra was take it out of its packaging. I had so much stuff. Stencils are a good example in this packaging, or washi tape, or Tim Holtz ephemera, or whatever. And then when it's in its packaging, it's precious in my head. Apparently, I didn't know this. I was operating under the assumption I was just keeping it so I could see what it was later. But I realized that if I kept everything in its packaging, I was not going to open it because I didn't want to ruin it or keep it from being recognizable, and I wouldn't know how to use it if I tried to go looking for it. Well, that's silly. So I spent a year on and off of redoing my craft supplies and taking stuff out of their packaging. And what I discovered was 2 things. One, packaging takes up a lot of space, because when you have to go and make space for this package, which is this size, and this product, which is in that size, yeah, it's a profound waste of space. You gain space by taking stuff out of its packaging is what I'm trying to say. And then number 2 was I actually use stuff when it's out of its packaging, which I suspected would be true, and it was. So if you've had doubts about taking things out of their packages, consider what I did and take stuff out of their package. You'll be glad you did. Or maybe you won't and you'll be mad at me, but that's the end of my story. Almost the end of my puddle of blue over here, and I've got enough green mixed in with it that it's really coming up teal, but it's okay. So these stencils were part of that take it out of the package and put like with like, right? So you put, I don't care if Faber-Castell made it. I don't care if Stencil Girl made it. I don't care if Stampers Anonymous made it. I started putting all of my stencils together because what I was doing was I was being brand precious or brand loyal or whatever. And I would put, Faber-Castell stuff with Faber-Castell stuff. Well, that's silly because who cares what brand it is? I mean, the brands care what brand it is. They want you to buy their stuff, of course, but I'm not brand loyal in that way, by and large. I mean, I will just buy pretty much golden acrylics, and that's another story. But when we're talking about tools, we're talking about stencils, Talking about washi tape. Who cares who made it? Put it with the other washi tape. So I spent the better part of a year going through the drawers, going through the bins, shopping my stash, and putting like with like, and taking stuff out of their packages. Paper pads that came in packages. I even started breaking apart some of my paper pads. Yeah, I did. Because sometimes in a paper pad, you'd have a rainbow of colors in there. And so I started, especially if I had duplicate paper pads. What? Duplicates? People do that? No. I would leave one pristine. And I still have that happening. And then one I would break up and, put like colors with like colors. So when I go looking for a red, I don't have to wonder, well, is that one paper pad that I had, does that have any red in it? Because that's such a waste of time. I don't know about y'all, but I can't get enough time in my studio. I work full time. I have a house to take care of and maintain. I have a social life. I have family, friends. When I get in my studio, that is precious time to me, and it should not be spent, and it was being spent, looking for things. And confessions of a hoarder. If left to my own devices, sometimes I have been known to spend my entire hour, 2 hours, whatever time I have available, in my studio organizing rather than doing. And if I'm not careful, I will spend my entire time doing busy work and no creative work. Maintenance work instead of creativity. And that is a shame. And I cannot tell you how many hours have been lost. And part of that is the lack of organization or lack of having things with the things that they should be with. I was organized, but I was keeping it precious. That was part of it. And part of it is I go through my supplies sometimes looking for inspiration. And that's backwards. For me, it's backwards. I am almost done getting this puddle up, but every time I think I'm getting close to the bottom of this pigment pile, there's more. What a shock, right? A strong pigment like Prussian blue keep giving you more? Who would have thought that? Anyway. So I now give myself 20 minutes, or what I do now actually is clean up at the end of the night so that I can come in here and start fresh. Because if I got to come in here and clean, I am likely to keep walking right past. If we were talking traditional clean, like you can't see your desktop, your floor, you're going to trip over 6 things getting to your desk because your floor is so jam-packed with stuff overflowing. But if I tidy up my previous project that I was working on the day before, when I leave my studio at the end of that day, even if it's not done, I put it in that bin, that Montessori bin. Then I can come in the next day and go, all right, what do I want to work on today? Oh yeah, I want to work on this, or I want to work on that. And I can decide. And then it's not time organizing and getting sidetracked. I squirrel so easy. I was in there a minute ago with the sewing machine, finishing up my last project, my last video, and I was watching YouTube, as one does, and I saw a creator make something, and I was like, I gotta go do that now. No, your goal today was to swatch out some more of these colors onto this page that you did last night. I prepped this last night. You're going to do what your goal was today so that you don't get sidetracked and squirreled too much. I mean, I know Montessori is great, but you also have to, not you, I have to hold myself accountable and remember my goals, because they all work towards a common purpose. Slide puzzle. I'm doing this so that I can do that next. And so I can do, Okay, let's try to finish up this puddle over here best we can, and then we're going to at some point get out some Windex or isopropyl alcohol, and we're going to finish the rest of it, done or not. We're getting really close. Should teach me to not stack my plates. And yet, how else are you supposed to put them somewhere? Don't know. Well, I'm liking how this is turning out. So I think I mentioned before, one of my goals is to get a bunch of these papers like this, or a bunch of these patterns, I should say, circles, the Persian pattern that I did before, I'm going to do a wave, the chevron, which is the next one, and scan them all, and then I'm going to print them onto various mediums, cardstocks, transparencies. That's a new one for me, the transparency thing. I'm excited to try it. I saw Barbara from 49 Butterflies do it, and I was like, ooh. Now, she was printing a digital kit onto a transparency, and she was showing, and I'm just excited to try it. I'm not a big transparency person normally, but there's a couple of ideas I got cooking up in there that I thought the transparency idea, and I thought this on a transparency might be interesting. It might prove complete, utter, epic fail, or it might be great. But anyway, I'm going to print them on some copy paper, and then I'm going to probably pull out some like 65-pound cardstock. I get that in packs from Hobby Lobby. I really like their cardstock. I don't necessarily like some of their politics, but we're not talking about that. I get some grief from people from shopping there, but I love people where they are, and I don't demand that they be a certain way or act a certain way for me to love them back. And that's businesses or people. But anyway, I love their 65-pound craft, white, black. They've also got 100. No. They've got 65. They've got 80. Love the 80. I like printing on that too. The 110, which is their super heavyweight, I have not printed on that yet, and I'm eager to try it. I have it in cream, white, craft, and black, but I use like the 110 stuff for substrates typically for some other things. I haven't had a need to print on something that heavy, but it'd be interesting to see what this would feel like or look like or how it would come out printed on that heavyweight, super heavyweight, I think they call it. And they make some of their color packs in that weight, but I don't always like their colorways. I like their basics, white, cream, black, craft. And so I'll probably print this on white and cream in like the 65 or the 80-pound. I might try the one. Do they have 100 or 110? I know they have 110. I just can't. Why do I suddenly think they have 100 also? I don't think they do. I think it's just 65, 80, 110. I think are the three weights. But I know that other people, like Barbara from 49 Dragonflies, love her. She's from Vienna, Austria. I know that they print on super heavy. Now, they may just be printing on 65. I have no idea. But when you watch them pull those digital kits out that they've printed on heavier cardstock, I'm thinking maybe it's on the 110, but maybe it is on the 80 or the 65. I think this stained my mat because I'm trying to get the rest of this up. But okay, move on. I can't tell if it's stained or if I'm adding more water to it and it's just looking like it's not coming up. And you know what? I don't care if it's stained. It means it's been used and loved and valued. high valued? No idea. That word just came out. Oops. Schwipsy. Okay. I think I might shift this around a little bit just to give my hand a little different position to be in. Hope that doesn't bother anybody. Let's go grab some green and... No, I don't like that either. Let's try this way. Let's try up and downsies. Not sure I like this either. Alright, we may have to... Very green. Alright, I gotta move these water brushes that I was playing with earlier out of the way so I can rearrange a bit. Alright, you go over here. Oh, and I hit the thing again. Sorry. Alright, I don't need you. I don't even think I'm going to get close to using you. So let's get you out of the way. Oh, wow. That was louder than I thought. I don't like that way. I think I want to be this way. Okay. Let's see if I can clean this spot up over here. Just so I don't put my elbow in it. Alright, not bad. Not bad. Alright. Back to business. Where we was here. The palette that would never end. You know, the song that never ends? This is the palette that never ends. Yeah, we're on an hour. Why not? If you like ASMR, here you go. I like ASMR myself. But it makes me sleepy. Well, as I'm painting this, I've come to the conclusion that I'm just going to have to make that one stay Prussian blue. So maybe my goal, because that amount of pigment is just going to take me eons to use up at the rate I'm using it. So maybe my focus needs to be the other remaining wells. Because Prussian blue is a color that I'm particularly fond of. So let's pivot. I think this is a little scant piece of ultramarine here on the edge. See if we can get that guy cleaned up. That's going to be my goal with the rest of these diamonds, is to clean that well, get that well cleaned out. And then we'll leave whatever that blue is and whatever that green is, and then we can just, pretty sure that green is sap. Don't know what that blue is, but I can swatch that out separately, just to see if I can figure it out a little bit. But if these were mixing wells in between, I really just have one mixing well left, plus that little bit that's left in there. These two are clean, so I'd have, you know, just that one mixing well left to clean up. Plus whatever this green is here, probably ought to get that out of there if that's ultramarine blue. Just so I can keep the ultramarine pure. Probably ought to get this green out of Prussian blue territory too, but I could see it, so you know it's there. Yeah, I'm going to leave that alone. No, I'll leave it alone, but I'm just not going to be, that's not going to be a focus. Well, if you're hanging with me this long, an hour in, hour and 5, if that's to be believed. Actually, it might be a little bit longer because I think I had to stop it at one point. Thank you for hanging out with me. I appreciate it. My mama used to say, when you do what you love, you'll never work a day in your life. And I love this. And while it is not my job, it is definitely my hobby. And there's nothing I'd rather do during my free time than play with pigments. Well, okay, maybe play with paper or fabric or encaustic. All right, hush. I think I'm gonna come back here. Clean this well up over here. There's some schmutz on the sides, but you know, I feel like all I'm doing is making rabbits over here. I'm just multiplying pigment. At some point, a paper towel is going to have to get employed. And then I'll have to be sad that I had to wipe up pigment that I couldn't use. This is what I'm doing right now. See, I'm even getting pigment. Oh, I think I found the culprit. There's where this was stacked somewhere. Anyway, what I was doing just now was pulling, it was cleaning, right? Okay, I'm going to do it. Oh, it's painful. Activating the pigment. Oh, making a mess. Oh, if you know me at all, messes are a natural part of my life. All right. My grandmother was born in 1909, and she lived until I was 31, I think. She's my mom's mom. Wonderful lady. Not perfect lady. Not without her flaws, but that's not what we're here to talk about. It's not what I started to tell the story about. But being born in 1909, she grew up without, well, in the formative years of her life, no electricity. And, you know, traveled around with horse and buggy. And she said that when she was, I think the story goes, sorry, grandmother, if I've got this wrong, but high school or so was the first time she'd ever ridden in an automobile. And it was her father, they had to move. They were from Oklahoma, and her father borrowed a truck to help them move their household from across town, from the old house to the new house. And the first time she ever rode in, you know, something other than a horse and buggy. Anyway, she got out of high school right about the time the Depression was hitting. And she's a little bit older than that, but you understand she was 20 when the Depression hit. And so the lessons of the Depression never left her, ever left her. And her mantra was always, use it up until it can't be used for whatever it was before, and then find a new way to use it. So, jelly jars began, and everybody's family, I'm sure, has grandmothers or great-grandmothers or mothers that can, relate to the story that went through that. Jelly jars became your drinking glasses, and butter tubs became your Tupperware, and you'd wash your tinfoil until it would disintegrate into your hands, because tinfoil was tough to come by and expensive if you could find it. And everybody had victory gardens, and that was World War I, and World War II. But my mother, of course, grew up with that being the way things were done. You didn't throw things out. You weren't careless with things. You used them more than once, and you didn't throw things away. So you kept perfectly good boxes, and you kept perfectly good bags, and a shirt that become too ratty to wear or to be a hand-me-down would become, your floor rags. You cut it up into chunks and use it to scrub your floors or whatever. But it was instilled in me because my mother did it too. Although my mother drew the line at washing aluminum foil. She would not, absolutely would not. In fact, she had a little bit of a ritual. It's kind of funny, where she would, I remember, being 15 years old or whatever, we'd be at my grandmother's house out in Oklahoma, and we'd be washing dishes, cleaning up after dinner, and I could hear my grandmother's voice now go, "Now, Sue, don't you throw my aluminum foil out. That's got more use left in it." And my mother, in a sheer act of defiance, just childhood trauma, whatever, she'd wait for my grandmother to disappear into the dining room to go get something, more dishes to bring back into the kitchen. And she would stand there with this look on her face and this big, over-exaggerated moment of balling that tinfoil up, aluminum foil up, into a big old ball, just as brassy as you can be, just almost as if she were getting out some old issues and walking over to the garbage can, and she'd make it super small so Ola wouldn't find it. Ola was my grandmother's name. And she made a big ceremony out of balling it up and throwing it away. Pleased as she could be with herself about doing this. Now, mind you, my mother's a 40-something-year-old woman at this point. Obviously, it's, this is not a rebellious woman by nature. But in that moment, she felt such a sense of accomplishment of being able to throw out a piece of aluminum foil that was well past when most people would use it. And I would just stand there and get a kick out of watching my otherwise conformist mother be a rebel in that moment. I mean conformist by the fact that she, stayed between the white lines. She followed the rules. She was not a hippie, even though she came up in that era. My mother, who didn't make waves and didn't otherwise cause a fuss or confrontation or what have you, she stood there and had that moment with that aluminum foil. And you could just see the sense of accomplishment in her face. And yet it was very short-lived, because my grandmother would be back in that kitchen momentarily, within moments, and she had to pretend like nothing had ever happened. And I, of course, did not rat her out, being the good first child, oldest daughter situation. I just would sit there and grin, knowing what I knew. But Ola was the youngest of 9, and a caboose at that. In fact, I think she had nieces and nephews that were older than her. But, she was a Midwestern woman with a lot of good Midwestern values, and she instilled those in my mother, and one of them was waste not, want not. So that's where the pain for me comes in, throwing away paper scraps and throwing away anything that seems useful. Pigment on the side of that ceramic thing. I hate doing it. And for most of my life, I've figured out ways to give things a second chance, if you will, a new life. Otherwise, where people would throw things out. We have annual Christmas card making parties here at my house, or we have until recently, anyway. And at the end of those Saturday all day come make your Christmas cards on my dining room table sessions, which are so much fun. There'll be all this paper left over, and invariably a family member or two who shall remain nameless, but you know who you are, will go to throw out perfectly wonderful, big, chunky sections. I hit the camera again, sorry. Big, chunky sections of paper. And I'd be like, no! And I go and I don't retrieve them out of the trash or anything, but I'm like, if you're not going to keep those, I will take them. And take them I do. Even if they're not my style. Like one year, somebody made cards with a big buffalo check. And I am not a fan of buffalo at all. But let me tell you, I'm still using that stuff. And I have found ways to use it, and it works. But not everybody wants to do that, and I get it. No, I'm not judging. Just saying that's just not the way I was raised. It goes against my grain to throw out stuff that's perfectly good. In fact, if you walk into my storeroom, yeah, I have a storeroom. I have a tubby of glass jars with lids. Jelly jars, salsa jars, spaghetti sauce jars, you name it. But here's how I've managed to find a happy medium is I will rescue, or not rescue, that's the wrong word. I will save, wash, and keep those glass jars to the top of the tubby. The minute I can't shut the lid or put a lid on that anymore is when I either have to, or I start throwing them away. Because if I put a limit on myself like that, then that keeps my house from turning into an episode of Hoarders. This is the bin for glass jars. Because I use them. I use them for, well, this is a mason jar, but I use them for water. I use them to hold paper projects that I'm working on. I use them. But the minute that your stuff controls you is the minute that you need to reconsider. So I started putting limits on myself with paper, with glass jars, with cardboard. I have a box of broken down, I have a tubby of broken down Amazon boxes. And when that box gets full, that tubby gets full rather, then I make myself either throw out anything new that's come in, or, I get, all right, what am I willing to recycle and let go of? Is this a better box than what I already have? Or is this better cardboard than I already have? Nope. Okay, recycle it. Well, I say recycle. We used to have recycling. Our city, Winter Garden, Florida, just outside Orlando, has stopped their recycling program as of yesterday. So we have to put all of our we don't have 2 trash cans anymore. We now have 1. And so makes me sad, but there, I guess what we've heard is like only 10% is actually recycled or whatever, and it's costing them more than whatever. The decision has been made that we are no longer doing recycling. And yeah, I'm twisting now because I'm getting to the bottom, and this is where it gets a little awkward sometimes. The beginning and the end sometimes gets awkward in the painting department. All right, let's go back to this direction. Anyway, so now everything's going in the landfill, which apparently it was already anyway, but whatever. I sure hate that we're not even trying. I know it boils down to money. Everything always does, doesn't it? But it just makes me sad. All right, so now what I'm going to be doing with these wells is I'm going to be trying to keep the rabbits from multiplying. And I'm going to be trying to scrape out whatever is in there so that they're not clean wells. So I'm being really careful to just not put a lot of pressure on the brush so I can pick up the pigment without releasing any water. Because one of the drawbacks to this brush is it is constantly, slowly, evenly and consistently releasing water. But that happens when you touch the bristles. So by making a long scoop into that ceramic well, you can minimize the amount of water it's releasing. So when I do that, as opposed to if I do a big, fast, swishy motion, which will release more water, I think. Maybe I'm wrong. But that's what I'm trying to do now, is pick up as much pigment as I can. That's just as saturated as it can be, to try to help clean those wells out. But I guess at some point I'm going to have to get a paper towel and just finish the deed. Let's try going this way. And despite my observations earlier about these being different, they certainly feel a little samey, so I'm going to grab some green. See if I can interject some small variations in the color here. My house is very quiet today. An hour and 20 some minutes and no interruptions, which is shocking. It's just the way it goes sometimes. My son is home. My husband is out. But my son is back in his man cave, so not to be bothered. Of course, he's grown. He doesn't need me for anything in the literal sense. He's a good boy. And he loves his mama. Okay, stop fussing with these colors, Mosley. Move along. I've got 2 rows left. We're almost there. This one's taking me longer than some of the other ones do. I think some of the other ones I usually do like inside of an hour, but this is also a smaller pattern. I think that's part of it. Also, too, I stop and talk and show you water pens. Why do I keep saying that? Water brushes. So that might have something to do with it, too. So when this little page is finished, oh, that was careless. I think I might be ready to be done with this little project, this little painting session. I'm going to wipe out these two wells that are mixing wells, and I'm going to consider that palette clean, and I'm going to put it to the side. Decide what its next. I might clean off the bottom a little bit because I don't like that pigment stuck to the bottom, because I don't want to have that set down on a, well, Dawn, way to go. Anyway, I might clean off the pigment off the bottom, but I mean, I'm going to consider it ready to be repurposed and ready for the next whatever. And then I may or may not work on that small palette. Oh, but you know, I said I was going to clean out that plastic palette and do waves and the chevron. Okay, I might still do that. I might do that sitting by the TV tonight, though. I just have no idea how many people want to watch 2 hours of this. We'll see. Well, the waves probably wouldn't be 2 hours, though, would they? Probably not. All right, I'm going to get some water. I know there's water in the thing, but I just feel like I need it. I need it, Mama. Tooms. Okay. I feel like I can just probably really finish off this pigment over here. One of the things I do when I get close to being around another page is I will, right here at the edge, I'll just lift it up and hold it just so I don't flick. So I don't accidentally put pigment on the other page. I learned that one the hard way on some of my other pages when I thought, and it's because I was working in a dark room. To be fair, I wasn't. This is not, and if I do, I do. But when I'm sitting here and I know that I'm getting close to the edge, I shall show you one of the other pages I did here. What's it? Where was it? Oh, it was here. So this page, when I got to the edge right here, it ran over. Oops, not on camera. It ran over down onto this page. And is it the end of the world? No. But I would have liked it if it hadn't. And then that's when I started lifting it up like this. And now I'm not having that happen when I lift it up, because it keeps that behind paper from coming in contact with the first. Yeah, that's an official term, behind paper. You know what I mean. Okay, I'm about getting tired of the same color puddles. That's better. You know what I'm about to do? I can't believe I'm going to say this. I'm about to get a paper towel and wipe it out. Yep. It's reached the end. The aluminum foil is crumbling. All right, you ready? Here we go. Aluminum foil has reached the crumble stage. All right, and then we're going to clean this one one. Goodbye, pigment. Goodbye, cruel world. Okay, now, and then there were 3. Oops, missed that spot. And while I'm here, let's see if I can clean any of this off. Wow. All right, let's use it. This is a rough piece of ceramic here. It's not soft and smooth. So I suspect at some point there's just going to be a big stain that remains. And there'll be no way to get it all off. And that's okay. I'm just activating the pigment that's kind of sitting on top of other pigment. And just an attempt to clean it up a little bit. I'm not a tidy artist, but I'm not a messy artist either. I'm somewhat tidy. Not OCD or anything like that, but I do like, I don't like smearing things. I don't mind if my hands get inky because I can go wash them, but I don't like things to get smeared onto other things, especially when you least expect it, like this little puddle that was over here. That was going to be a disaster kind of waiting to happen, if you know what I mean. Because that was going to be, I'm going to stick my elbow in it wearing a fresh white shirt, or, you know, that was going to be. So I cleaned that up for obvious reasons. Okay. This is giving me a bit more pigment than I would have thought, but that's okay. Why is this not turning into a diamond, half diamond, or whatever shape? It's being goofy. It's like there's something on it repelling it or something. I need hand cream, but I'm holding off till I finish this swatching. Because hand cream getting on paper will make it resist. If you didn't know, you probably did, but now you know. Well, very turquoisey, or very Prussian blue. All right, we might have reached the end of this. Be still. Let's get a clean something or other. Here's a rag. Oh, darn. Let's pick a side that doesn't have something on it. I clearly need some new rags in my studio. Well, that just made a big, colossal mess. You go sit over here. Think about what you did. Okay. You come back into the picture. Let's finish up this piece. Oh, mercy. More pigment. Let's finish up this piece, and hopefully it'll be cohesive enough, even though we're switching palettes, because I think most of these are similar colors anyway. Yeah, let's pick up a little of that. I'm over it. Can you tell? Probably hangry. It's 3 o'clock and I haven't eaten yet today. That could be it. GLP-1s to the rescue. Need more water, but I don't want to squeeze the brush. And as if the timing couldn't be more perfect, my husband's pulling up. Right as I finish these last couple of triangles. Tips. Okay. Well, as always, I will take a thumbnail of it once it's dried down. And you can see this nearly 2-hour saga in a close-up and personal way. And I appreciate you hanging around and listening to me yap about nothing and watching me swatch little swirly bits of paint on some paper. And I'll see you again soon. Thanks for stopping by.